officially open up the planning committee and welcome everybody here today. Janet, I take it you're doing the minutes. Have we got any apologies for
I haven't
today?
received any apologies.
Okay, right, fine. And the order of business?
Councillor Milligan, Russell.
Oh, sorry, right, okay, thank you. And the order of business, Janet?
As per the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Takes us on to declarations of interest. As per normal, you can declare now or you can declare on the specific item when we reach it. So I'll just ask if anybody's got anything at this moment in time that they can think about. Right, if the answer is no, then as I say, once we hit the agenda item, if you recall that you need to declare answers, you can do so then. That takes us on to the minutes of the excuse me, the planning committee meeting, which was held 18th of May, which has already been circulated, and there has been no responses to that. Is that then? Oh, Councillor Smale.
Yes, and Democratic Services actually reflect that I left the meeting before the discussion of the pathway development, but I'm sure that I declared that interest right at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, can we get that sorted out, please?
Yes, I'll sort it. Thank you.
Right, we'll get that amended, Councillor Smale, as part of the minutes that will reflect the record of the meeting. With that in mind, are we all quite happy with the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That then takes us on to item 5.1, which under public reports, which is the Midlothian Local Development Plan Action Programme, which has been circulated round members with an opportunity to see how far we've come since the 2017 local plan. And this is then got to be submitted to government ministers just to let them see how Midlothian is faring in our action programme. Is there any members got any questions on this?
Chair,
No.
sorry.
Oh, yes.
Hand up earlier, Chair. A member of the public contacted me just before the meeting asking if they're able to come in to watch it. I don't know if members of the public are able to do that at this stage.
They're not Councillor Hackett, but I will defer to Willie Venters, who I see is on the call. Who's our legal today?
Thanks, Chair.
Yes, thanks, Chair. In terms of the protocol, it's been agreed with the council. There is an exclusion of members of the public at this stage. They can obviously get a copy of the recording of this meeting subsequently.
No worries. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Chair.
No, you're quite right, Councillor Hackett, and I see Councillor Parry's got her hand up as well.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the consultation process outlined in point 4 of the covenant paper. In 4.2, it says that there was a targeted consultation carried out. And I just wondered, does this council speak for limited consultation? I just thought that it would have been helpful to have broadened that out to, at the very least, community councils or the Federation of Community Councils. I wondered why it was so limited.
Okay, thanks very much. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the consultation is we've used the word targeted in terms of we've consulted those bodies that have a particular reference in the document, and that's just following what the regulations have done, because it's effectively a report which is updating where we are rather than setting out a vision which you would engage in a wider consultation. So it's more of a record of what the council's been doing over the last 2 years. And we've consulted just simply following the regulations, which are those bodies or partners which have been referenced in the document.
Okay, Councillor Parry, does that explain it?
Sorry, Chair, I nodded. I just assumed that you could.
Oh, sorry. No, you're not on screen. Sorry. That's why I was asking you. But right, okay, fine, thanks. Councillor Smale.
Yes, taking up Councillor Parry's question, will there be any objection to this document, should we approve it, being circulated to the community councils? Because I understand there's quite a lot of interest in it.
Chair, Chair. Once, if the committee agree, we'll publish it on our website. So we'll quite happily notify the community councils. It's quite a sizable document, so rather than sending them copies, we'll notify them where they can see the electronic copy, if that's okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. It becomes a public document. Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. One was in relation to the population estimates, and I note that the population of Midlothian is larger than expected. How is that information fed up to the Scottish Government, do we know, in planning terms, and also planning for public services? And how long does that take, if you like, to see through funding formulas and other things that are used to fund local authorities? That's my first question. The second one was about the point at 3.2 about affordable housing. You know, we often hear in the planning applications that 20–25% of houses will be affordable, but I note in the report that it's about 10% of all the properties that have been developed thus far in the development plan are only considered affordable. So I'm just wondering what the discrepancy is there and how that might be caught up in future applications. Thank you.
No problem, Councillor Hackett. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of the population numbers, there is a sort of two-way communication between the planning authority on behalf of the council and the Scottish Government in terms of population based on their census and other information that they produce in terms of their statistics. We actually rely quite heavily on the Scottish Government in terms of population statistics. The way these things operate, though, sadly, you're always slightly behind by a year or two just because of the recovery of the data. So you're always slightly behind the curve. But again, when we produce the next action programme, which is scheduled for 2022, we'll update those figures again based on what's available. In terms of the affordable housing, that's making reference to a one particular year, one particular housing land audit. So it's a snapshot in time in terms of what has been completed in terms of house building. So the affordable component isn't necessarily 1 year it'd be above 25%, next year it'd be below. It's just the way they've been completed on site. So if you actually look at the policy and over a period of time, you're right, you'll deliver about 25% affordable, because that's what the policy position is. But that's, like I said, that's just making reference to 1 year. So in that year, it's obviously the completion of affordable houses were below the 25%. But Chair, if it's any assistance, I can always go and look at other years to see how that number's bobbed up and down over a period of time, if that helps.
That'd be helpful, Peter. If you could just get that recorded in the minute, it would be helpful, because it then becomes public record. Thanks. Councillor Hackett, does that satisfy your questions?
That does, thank you.
Right, fine, thanks. I got Councillor Cassidy and then back to Councillor Smale.
Thank you, Chair. Peter, I was just through the chair. I was just going to ask about the developers' contributions. I see it says the figures risen to 51.6 million, of which 15.2 has been collected. Is that on course, or are we lagging behind a bit with the developers' contributions?
No, Chair, that's as expected. It's obviously what happens is that when you grant planning permission for a development, especially a housing development, the payments received by the council are done on a sort of tranche basis, on the basis of when units are built. So you don't get it all at the front. So that's why we've secured more than we've received, because that will come in due course. There's a lot of housing which has been approved by Midlothian Council, which hasn't been finished or completed yet. So that's why that figure, there's a gap between the sort of secured amount and the recovered amount, but that will catch up with time.
Okay, is that okay, Councillor Cassidy?
Yes, thank you.
Right, no problem. Councillor Smale.
Yes, thank you, Peter Arnsdorf, for referring to the slippage. I think indirectly that's happening not only in our own social housing, but also thanks to the pandemic in owner-occupied developments. We're always told that we can't object to anything that's been zoned for housing, because if we do, the Scottish Government will fine us if we don't meet our targets. Can you confirm that's the case? And considering COVID, is the Scottish Government going to relax the timescale for us to achieve the housing that was agreed way back in 2016-17?
Okay, Chair. In terms of the housing, each authority does have a housing target to deliver. There hasn't been any adjustment in those targets because of COVID. Those targets are usually done on a 5-year basis, and sometimes you'll often either hear me or see in reports reference to the 5-year housing land supply. So you sort of deliver over a period of time, and in theory that enables a good year and a bad year to balance themselves out, as it were. In terms of Midlothian, despite COVID, we are delivering our housing targets. We do have a generous supply of housing in Midlothian, so we're ticking that box, as it were. If you don't deliver, then the risk is, or the potential risk is, that speculative housing developments get granted planning permission on appeal, and they may be in locations that the council don't want them, and maybe at densities the council don't want them, there may be layouts that the council don't want them. So the risk of not delivering your housing is that you're effectively almost moving that decision making over to planning reporters and the Scottish Government. So that's the risk. But at the moment, Midlothian has consistently, the last few years, delivered its housing, and it's, like I say, it's got a generous housing land supply, so we're not at risk in that situation. You may remember last committee there was a paper about the National Planning Framework, and that was housing targets going forward. So that's setting out the next batch of targets for us. So that's where we'll be. But at the moment, we're doing okay.
Okay, Councillor Snell. Right, fine, thanks. Councillor Alexander.
Hi. Yes, can I just say it's not the Scottish Government that decides, it's the Scottish reporter, who is not part of the actual government. They're part of, I don't know, it's like a secretary, you know, like an officer in the Scottish Government. So it's not a political thing.
No, Councillor Alexander, it's not a political thing per se, but the reporter's report goes in front of Scottish ministers. The Scottish minister has the right stroke opportunity to agree with the reporter, or indeed override the reporter's findings. So from that aspect, yes, you're quite correct. It's not a member of Parliament that actually sits there and deliberates on the actual application per se, but it's a minister that actually has final sign-off. Reporters' unit are the people that are actually appointed to or allocated work per se, depending on who the reporters' units are and what authority some of these officers are from. Over the years, we've had officers that have retired that have gone into the reporters' unit from Midlothian Council. They're not allowed under law to take up any applications that are within Midlothian. They would normally have other applications. So you're quite right in one sense, but at the end of the day, the minister decides whether the reporters' views and reporters' findings are acceptable and will sign it off, or indeed has the right to override a reporter's decision. Councillor Alexander, do you want to come back in?
Would that minister then be able to override if the reporter made a point large enough that it couldn't be overturned? So it's really all depending on how that reporter or the reporters report that decision and their finding. So it does come back to a non-political decision in reality.
No, it comes back. It comes back very much. Right, could you put yourself on mute, Councillor Alexander? Thanks. It's just I'm getting feedback. It comes back at the end of the day to the minister in the Scottish Government that has responsibility for planning. It's as simple as that. And that minister can look at a report. A reporter could actually uphold the council's rejection to an application, and indeed a minister could overturn that. So it works both ways. Anyway, right, getting back to our own progress report here and what we're doing. Is there any further questions on this particular issue? Quite happy to endorse it, to send it to Scottish Government, to put it on the website and share it with all and sundry. Agreed?
Agreed.
Right, thank you very much. That then takes us on to the Rosalind Conservation Area character appraisal. That went out for public consultation. This is its return journey. And it's just, you'll see if you've read through it, that the certain amendments are taken on board and certain decisions have been taken, some of which won't be picked up until we look at the next Midlothian development local plan. Okay, so that's just for noting and endorsement today. People all okay with that? Right, thanks very much. That then takes us on to a TPO. You know, it's like waiting for a bus. You don't get any for ages, and then TPOs come along once or twice every meeting. So this is a TPO up at Little Moss and Nether Moss near Howgate. Again, it's just for your endorsement today to go out to public consultation. Is that agreed that we tick the box there and go through the due process? Councillor Parry.
Chair, can I just ask, just on a kind of tree-related issue, because it's on the agenda, I just wanted to ask, does Midlothian have a policy in which where a tree is felled on council land that will replace one? I'm just aware that there's a lot of tree felling at the moment, some on council property, and I just genuinely wasn't sure whether that was a policy that we had. So I just wondered if there was any clarification on that.
Thanks. I'm not going to dive in there, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of there's no blanket policy for the council. If the council removes one, it replaces, but it does have an overriding approach to enhance biodiversity and address climate change. So it is mindful about landscaping, tree planting, in terms of its own actions, as well as what it requires of the development industry in terms of planning applications. So the bottom line is, if you're seeing a tree on a piece of council land being removed, it doesn't automatically mean it's going to be replaced in that location or close proximity, but the council is mindful of its biodiversity and climate change commitments.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, it's helpful in terms of the clarification, but it is really disappointing that as a council we don't do that as a matter of course. You know, I think we're well aware of our obligations and responsibilities around, you know, climate change and saving our environment, and particularly where it's council land. You know, if we ever remove a tree, I think we should plant one or replace one. I'd be guided by something kind of legal in terms of governance around where that would sit, whether it would be right for a planning committee to make that decision or whether it would fall elsewhere. But I would be really interested in pursuing that, Chair.
Okay, Willie, I'll bring you in just now.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's not a particular matter that's before members for a decision today, but it's perhaps something that can be taken up with the Chief Executive and looked at separately.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Parry, you can pursue it with the Chief.
I will enthusiastically.
I know you will. I know you will. No tree hugging now. Okay, so pre-application consultation 5.4. Again, the report is in front of you. This is a pre-application consultation which allows elected members to have a point of view at this moment in time, which will not affect their participation in any final decision that will be taken if and when it comes back. So I'll just open it up to members. Councillor Curran.
Thanks, Chair. I think under normal circumstances, I would really welcome this. It should mean job opportunities and hopefully job opportunities for Midlothian, but I caveat that with, I suppose, much disappointment. And when I say different circumstances, it would be no surprise to members I'm referring to grade separation at Sheriff Hall. No doubt this is going to result in more pressure, more congestion at Sheriff Hall. You know, I'm slightly digressing here, but I've tried to remain positive over the last 2 years and refrain from being critical of, you know, the City Deal Joint Committee, the Transport Scotland or the Transport Secretary. But, you know, it's really time, you know, we started moving on the grade separation issue at Sheriff Hall. It just seems it's delay after delay. And, you know, I'd urge any member, any MSP, any of our MSPs who can help move this situation forward, who can apply pressure where they can, just to let's get on with it. If there's going to be a public local inquiry, then let's have it and let's get on with it. Sorry, Chair, I just need to get that off my chest.
No, you had to get that off your chest. I know, I understand your frustration there. And this will actually just put another tier of pressure on that particular roundabout. Is there anybody else got questions? Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the point of Sheriff Hall, just to say that to ensure that this application, if it does go ahead in the future, doesn't limit the opportunity or the possibilities of what changes might happen at Sheriff Hall. I notice it's quite close to the bypass and quite close to Sheriff Hall, so just ensuring that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Okay. Peter will take a note of that. Anybody else got any questions on this? Nope. Okay, that then takes us to our second pre-application consultation, which is a development up at Mayfield Industrial Estate. Again, the report has been circulated. Councillor Hackett, is that your hand up for this one, or was it a legacy hand?
Sorry, it was a legacy hand, but I do want to.
I thought you would. You take the opportunity of my good nature, yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen back. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just note this development encroaches into the employment land, and it's just being mindful that that doesn't, again, limit our opportunities for employment development for this area, particularly with the number of houses that are going up in around the Mayfield and East Houses area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. And Peter will take note of that as well. Is there anybody else got anything further? No. Okay. There's no private reports, so therefore the meeting is concluded. Next meeting after you having a holiday break, but please go abroad. Make sure you staycation and be careful. Date of the next meeting is the 31st of August at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much for your attendance and attention. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Bye-bye.
Bye.